I'm Tim Bradner. Welcome to Capitol Views. We're here today with Pat Pitney, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and Pat's the state's budget director. Very challenging position this year.
Thanks, Tim, for having me.
Pat, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. I know you came from UAF, University of Alaska Fairbanks, and you had some good training for this year. Last year there, you went through something very difficult with the budget transition there. Anyway, tell us about yourself.
Well, in total, I was with the university system for 23 years, and my first 18 years was with the university, the statewide system. And most related to this position, I was the director of budget and up to the vice president of budget and planning for the university system. So I worked with the board of regents and the president to craft the university budget, and then delivered it down here to the legislature. So that was probably the most direct related job to this job I'm doing now with the state. But the last, since 2008, I was working with the University of Alaska Fairbanks as their vice chancellor for administration. So much more active day-to-day operational role. So, things like the police and fire and risk management and facilities, as well as the budgeting and human resources and things like that. So
Pat, where did you come from before that?
Well, I grew up in Montana, and I went to college in Murray, Kentucky, and then moved to Fairbanks shortly after I graduated from college, because that's where my husband lived, and he was the rifle coach for the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And so I moved up and got my master's at UAF, so master's in business. So, yeah, so kind of a weird route to get to Alaska, but Alaska is home. I've been in Alaska since 1987.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us take circuitous routes getting to Alaska, but
Exactly.
we stay here when we come here.
Yes, yeah, no, it's definitely home, and I have 3 adult children, and so far so good. They're all in state. So
UAF has gone through some difficult times last year, and in a way you honed some skills in dealing with these kind of situations doing that. What was that like? What did UAF have to deal with last year?
well, in fact, last year was the worst of the previous 3 years, but UAF has dealt with budget reductions for the previous 3 years. And you're always fighting rising costs, and either, for the first 2 years it was just flat revenues. So you had to make adjustments to fit into no new revenues when your costs were going up. But last year, when the legislature took $16 million from the university system, $8 million of that reduction landed at UAF. And so it's a kind of a public process. You try to tell everybody as much as you can, as early as you can, of the situation. Let people know you're going to have to make hard choices. Let people weigh in. Do as much analysis as you possibly can. So all the decisions are hard decisions, and but hopefully you make the ones that preserve the most service.
And you're trying to do that now.
Exactly.
In the situation that you're in now.
Exactly. So hard choices, can you pick the one that has the least impact in the long run?
Yeah.
And can you choose a reduction now that you can easily recover from when there's funding in the future? So you don't want to tear down capacity that takes years and years to build up. You don't want to tear down anything.
Yeah,
you want to preserve as much as you can, but it's often the choice between 2 bad decisions and which is the least bad. Yeah. And that makes it much more difficult, and you have to, it just doesn't feel as good as when you're moving in the positive direction and you're getting to build things, and so it's definitely a different situation.
Well, it's more challenging too, because the legislature has their own ideas as to how to do things, and you have to deal with that. It's just a big give and take and compromise. But this happened so quickly. I mean, Governor Walker came into office and the revenues just took a slide. Of course, they were sliding even before he took office and even while he was campaigning. But what a difficult situation to have just a brand new administration and your revenues collapsed by 50%. I mean, that must have been really challenging to.
Yeah, I mean, probably the fortunate thing is myself, the Attorney General, the Governor, Lieutenant Governor probably had a little bit more experience in maybe some of this, but this is the first experience we've had, so we've never seen it in the other direction. This is the world we have, and this is the world we'll work in. So although it was challenging, and you have to keep your eye on those key priorities, it is the situation the state's in, and so you work with the hand you have and do the very best you can for the state with that hand.
I think, as a sense, we'll get through this. We've been here before. Oil prices were $8 in 1998 and $8 in 1986. But I think I've heard you say this before, that you don't want to take a meat axe to things in a way that'll shatter the economy, and the governor has made that point also.
Right. We are in a very fortunate situation that there's savings that can be relied on, so you can take prudent steps. You still have to take and make hard decisions. You still have to take reductions that you'd prefer not to have to take, but you don't have to take huge swaths in the short run. You can take the time to consider the right reductions, the reductions that will have the least impact. Every reduction is going to have an impact somewhere. That's just there's no question about that. But can you take the time and the considerations to come down that does preserve the economy, that does preserve your ability to bring back services when the time is right, or can you choose the services that you say, it's now time for the state of Alaska not to do that service. We as a state have matured enough that we don't necessarily have to fund that via the state. But it takes a little bit of time, because you're right, we did come in and all of a sudden, boom, a totally new circumstance, going from a $6 billion revenue stream to $2 billion revenue stream. That's hard.
Pat, following the session, is there going to be a period of review of what maybe further restructure we may have to do in terms of major program changes? There might be the time then to do that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, literally, state government last year was $6 billion. The governor's budget this year was $5.5 billion. State revenue at this oil price is $2 billion. Yeah. You have to continue to make choices. Having said that, I don't think anybody's going to be willing to have state government at $2 billion. So what is the right size government for this state? What are the services that only the state can do? And what do we want to see going forward as a state? And those are the questions what we ask, and really spend the time studying.
Well, it's a difficult, challenging time. Pat, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And I'm Tim Bradner, Capital Views. Thank you.